Hi, so tonight we're going to talk about Lagos, Nigeria, and it is one of the most wealthiest cities in the world, and certainly in the top three wealthiest cities in Africa. And I would say to start with, it differs quite a bit from Cairo and Johannesburg. Johannesburg being kind of an inland city, and Cairo actually being more of a delta and actually having a lot of flooding and just different kinds of problems there. So, really, when you think about sub Saharan Africa, it really is between Johannesburg and Lagos, and there's even some other places in East Africa, but basically for West Africa, which is where most of the people in Africa live, basically you consider Lagos as the wealthiest city in Africa, and certainly one of the wealthiest cities in the world. So we're going to go through a lot of details here and kind of just basically compare what's going on. One thing that kind of surprised me is actually that Lagos is basically on the same area of like Providence, Rhode Island, and also Australia. It's also similar to the United Kingdom. Many cities in the United States, in terms of wealth, have about the same. It's not the same wealth per capita, but the same wealth in terms of total GDP. And you can see basically Lagos is pretty much above many cities in China. One of my close friends lives in Kunming, and some of these other cities, Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh City, for instance, and then New Orleans, Memphis. It's basically about the same as New Orleans. So something to think about when you think about wealth in the United States, and you kind of compare that to what's going on in West Africa. So I kind of wanted to start, when you first start studying the planet, it's kind of hard to know like where each of these cities are. And basically Lagos is right over here. It's actually kind of in this pink zone right next to this red zone. So similar kind of climate to like Miami, Florida. So basically if you look at Florida over here, you kind of have this red and pink zone, and Tampa, as well as the green zone. So maybe a little bit colder in Miami than in Lagos, but the climate really tells you a lot. Basically, it's very similar to most of this region. Most of this pink area in Africa is where most of the people live. So in the red area, it's just the climate is a little bit too rainy or too hot. But there are some exceptions over here in Uganda. But basically, and the other reason I really wanted to do this topic is I got so many new friends from Nigeria. There's actually a bunch of people in town, the town that I live in here in Idaho, from Nigeria. A couple just kind of new friends that I've been making on the internet. And it's basically just one of the most important cities in all of Africa. And certainly many people are projecting it to be one of the most important cities on the planet. In the next 10 years or even few years, things are changing very fast. So you're going to see quite a lot there. I wanted to compare it like up here in Cairo. Basically, that's the other really wealthy city. And then down here, basically in Johannesburg. So the nice part about Lagos is it's right on the beach, and there's also many other kind of little countries right along this coast of West Africa with other major cities nearby. So it makes for a fun little experience because you have not only Lagos, but a bunch of other cities right there. So I'm sure that some of my friends that are in Africa are probably laughing at me. I'm not, this is kind of one of the first kind of few times that I've looked at Lagos for the past few years, or probably not even pronouncing it Lagos correctly, but basically this is the kind of the layout of the city. One thing that I would say that happens here is this happens kind of all over the world, is you basically have a downtown area, which is right in here, and then kind of suburban sprawl heading out into like the suburbs, where you get some of the more of the problems and just basically different kinds of things happening. So but it's important to kind of look, and then there's also this kind of lagoon area. So this is kind of quite swampy area, and we're going to talk about the swamp zone a little bit more later. in our discussion. This is actually one of my favorite maps. We're going to try to look at this one in detail, but it basically just highlights some of the major roads. And also you can zoom in on it. It's called Wikimapia. I think you see it down over here, Wikimapia. And it basically gives you quite a lot of detail about what's going on. So here you can see the size of Lagos. The population is actually quite dense. It's actually kind of shifted a little bit over to the west side. And then there's kind of that downtown area that we're talking about. And there's definitely all the way over to Accra. I got some friends, a pretty cool guy that I'm getting to know here out in Accra. He wants to start a business out there. But basically you can kind of just drive along the coast here. And get to other cities as well as a ton of little inland towns, all in West Africa. So, and it only gets more complicated as you get east, actually, which I didn't even show on this map. I can maybe just show you really quick to show you what I'm talking about. So we want to kind of get in this discussion as soon as possible so you can kind of understand. So basically Lagos is right over here underneath that Novo word. But there's basically this major river that comes all the way out here and basically comes all the way through here. And this is basically creates this major delta. So this is a floodplain. Believe it or not, a lot of people live right there. So if you look at the population, one thing we didn't look at is how many people are actually living on this floodplain. And you'll see there's quite a lot of people that are actually, there's probably more people living here in Nigeria than anywhere else in all of Nigeria. It's not as dense as Lagos, but there's certainly a lot of weird cities that live right in this floodplain. And if you remember from the discussion that we had earlier, that's actually a red zone right here. So this is even hotter, more wet, and more rainy. And it even gets to a really bright red here deep in the jungle. But basically, a lot of people prefer it being 90 degrees or more every single day. So if you look at the temperature, like we were going to look at here in Lagos, you'll see definitely it gets very hot here. So I would say this is extremely hot almost year round, right? But the weird thing is it gets down to 70 degrees as well. So basically the temperature is like 80, but there's quite a big swing every day in temperature, and it's basically very warm year round. So the coldest it gets is in like August, which is like 84. So basically you're talking about the winter being the nice season, at least in my opinion. So, and then quite a lot of hours, daylight hours. This is actually very important. Like right now it's dark during the daytime. It could be dark during like 4 or 5 p.m. In some places in the United States, especially if you live in the far north. Further south you get, closer to the equator, you start to get more of that 12 hours of daylight every single day. So that's a really important factor, I would say, considering when you are living and working near the equator. So let's go back to a couple more of these maps, and you can start to see, we just looked at that population in the Delta region, and you can see just how significant this river is. It's just a huge flood zone, and then that's why Lagos is right over here, is basically because it's a floodplain and it's hard to actually even live there. But people are living basically on boats and different kinds of very precarious ways all around the world. So there's some cool stuff going on, particularly in Nigeria, to take a look at. Here's more of that Delta region, and you can see this being pretty floodplained out, and then kind of that lagoon even heading into Lagos. And you see these purple spots here are basically population. But there's also flood zone too, so it's kind of hard to pick it out. But here you can see Lagos is actually a pretty busy port, similar to Lomé, and right along here, this is Douala, and some other areas. And the electricity is interesting to think about. So when you think about development in Africa, if you are working on the electric grid, there's probably some big money to be made in the next few years, particularly on the electric grid in Africa. And that pretty much starts in Lagos. As you can see, these power lines kind of come through here, and they're actually building quite a number of power stations out here on the floodplain. Which is interesting to see even more so than in Lagos. And here's kind of the downtown area, so you can see what the main infrastructure looks like. There's actually the power grid is over here on that region. So we're going to divide this conversation up kind of a bit into some other detailed stuff later on, but this is kind of like the general overview. But as you can see, capital is out in here, whereas the people are kind of living out in here. So it's something to think about, that Lagos is actually kind of not really the population center. It's probably even over here on the Delta region, like I was mentioning. So something to think about. They're actually building a train that will go all the way from Lagos all the way out over to here, I believe, kind of along the coast. It's one of the biggest projects Nigeria is working on right now. And then here's kind of the more detailed satellite imagery. You can see that population sprawl heading out there. And I definitely recommend looking at carefully all the way to Accra. So basically you have these two major cities, Accra and Lagos, and they basically are partners and they're very close to each other. So it's definitely important to know about both. And one of the big things also I would say is, if you are one of my friends, to think about is the flight number of airplanes in Africa. There's just so few. It's like the least traveled to place in the world by far. Look at all these airplanes in the United States, Europe, India, even in the Middle East. The way to change that is basically work with the Middle East and basically Cairo. So although Lagos has only a couple airplanes at this hour of the night, you can see that this screenshot was just taken momentarily ago. I'm taking it about 8 p.m. So it is kind of quite late at night right now, but even any time during the day, there's basically very few aircrafts in Africa. So, and it actually makes the price of the flights super expensive because no one's flying, so the airplane tickets are very expensive, meaning only the wealthiest of the wealthy can actually travel in Africa. So another thing to think about is, what are the major projects going on? I wanted to look at all this. We're going to take a break here in a moment and then kind of study each one of these major tourist areas in Lagos. And you can see here basically how close Lagos is to that red zone. So it is pretty hot here, and this port right here is probably the main population center. So it's kind of weird that they actually can't live right here, but they live quite inland a little ways, and making it possible to live on this floodplain is pretty amazing. They actually do that a lot in China, which is interesting. Like in Shanghai and some other areas are basically floodplains. And here you can see more details of that. And then also the nighttime imagery. You can see that the light, there was electric grid over here, and there wasn't really electric grid over here in Lagos, believe it or not. So they actually have more electrical power actually on the Delta than they do in Lagos, which is kind of interesting. And then here you see all the other cities, including Accra, along the west coast of Africa at night. So this nighttime image gives us a pretty clear view about what's going on in Africa. So I'm going to pause this. We're going to go dive into some street view and take a look at some of the most popular places to visit and some of the kind of like iconic, interesting places in Lagos. So we're going to pause this video for a moment and then come back. I'll zoom in here so you can take a look at the population of this. And you can see there's quite a lot of new people. They're actually building a blue line. If you looked at that, that's going to head out west here of Lagos and kind of go into this region here. So is quite a lot of people in neighboring cities. So it is interesting to look at street view in Africa. I was very surprised, and we're certainly going to be very surprised tonight. I hope you've enjoyed so far what we talk about. I do have like at least 10 or 20 new friends in Lagos that I've been meaning to talk with more, and I wanted to basically study the place a little bit more in detail before I started talking with them in detail about what's going on. And we can take a look here at this map as well. I think I'll leave it at this and pause it for about 5 minutes or so here, and then come back to some of the street view imagery. Alright, so let's dive into some of the street view here of what's going on in Lagos so you can kind of get an idea. And one thing I would say is that before we go into all this, the wealth here is kind of going to be quite different because we're basically looking at a whole different area. And it'll be really fun to see some of these top attractions. Just wanted to highlight some of these. So basically used AI to kind of help tell what were the most important attractions in Lagos. You can see there's a $20 billion port, basically, and it's a refinery being built here kind of on the far eastern side of Lagos. You can see these red lines, the blue line and the green line heading out here, and then maybe even a new airport area out this in the free trade zone. So that's kind of an interesting project that's being worked on. Here you can see the blue line and the red line and then kind of the marina. This is the main little island. So a lot of people may be taking some of those train stops through here, as well as they're kind of working on different road construction. So we're going to zoom in here and take a look at what's going on the ground to kind of see what's going on here. Here's a beach that I wanted to take a look at. Here's another kind of like little park that was very popular in Lagos. Here's another national museum that we want to take a look at, and then we're going to take a look at this other beach, I believe. Here it's taking a little while to load up, but we'll get to all these hopefully in just a second. And maybe we should start on a different page of something a little bit more inland. So this looked interesting. It was a little bit of a park kind of in the suburbs, and you can see they got this weird statue, which looked pretty interesting. I'll try to open this up here, and it's called Johnson Park, and then they got this weird, I'll show you a couple different photos that they had here. Unfortunately, this is taking a little while to load, so I don't know if we're going to be able to see everything here, but you can see some of these park photos. It looks like they got some animals there, and some different things. So let's take a look at this actual park and see what it looks like on Street View. So we'll zoom in here and see if we can get this going good. Sorry, my internet is kind of messed up right now for some reason. Let me pause the video. Sorry about that. I just wanted to close a bunch of tabs, and hopefully that will speed up this a little bit here. We'll see if that's actually the truth or not. So the interesting thing that I've been studying about Lagos is actually most of the action and fun things going on are actually down in this region. But I wanted to look at this first because this will give us kind of a different feel, definitely, than what is going on in other areas. You know what I think is happening is the airline map is messing up everything here. So let me close that out. This one is just got so much data that one may actually slow everything down. Looks like that helped a little bit, but anyway, so we're gonna try to zoom in here if we can. So here's the major airport. So it's pretty close, a few thousand feet from the major airport. And let's zoom around here. Hopefully we can get my computer to be a little bit nicer. But the airport you see is quite large, actually, and then I'm going to zoom out so you can see the beachfront, hopefully, in a second. So this is really pretty kind of far from the beach, but it is a little cool little park that a lot of people here in Lagos are familiar with. So let's just zoom in and look at it. So it looks like pretty expansive park, right? So they got all this area over here, and this kind of road that comes through here. So let's see if we can get a street view image of this. Aha. Not really working properly here, but pretty funny. It may be that they don't have any street views. I don't know. Let's see. I'm trying to look at this and see. It might be that either there's something wrong with my computer, or let me zoom out. I want to see, because they certainly do have some street views down near main downtown areas. I'm going to pause this again. Sorry about this. Okay, there we go. So now all the street views have suddenly popped in. So we can probably zoom in here and see. So this is it's pretty miraculous to see all this street view. Right, they just got so much there. And then if I can press here, I'm gonna try to zoom in, see if we can get any views of this park. So it looks like pretty secure actually, right? So it looks like they got like a pretty big security wall almost around. It says House of the Assembly, so could be that this is next to a government center of some sort. But it does give us some perspective here. It looks like we're not going to be able to get into the park on Street View, so I'm going to just close this out. But that was one of the more popular places to check out, this little park. I'm going to check out this beach here. So there's actually this other beach looked really cool as well. But let's look at this beach first, because actually it's more closer to where the population is on this lagoon, as well as there's this new Echo Park area here. So this is the first time I've ever seen this beach, and it looks a pretty fun beach. It actually extends quite far out here, and they got all these little jetties that you can walk out on here. But on this side, let's turn on the street view and see what we can get. Looks like we can't get super close to the beach. There's one guy right here. We can maybe get another guy here. Let's see what that one looks like. Let's actually grab this one here, and it actually looks like we even got a little spot right in here. It looks like it's pretty difficult to get right on the beach with the street view, but we might be able to get this part here, which looks like kind of an interesting little spot to grab. So let's grab that one right there, see what this looks like. Okay, so pretty cool. They got a nice little horse on the beach, some people swimming, and it looks like kind of a jetty. So this is the rock area here, maybe even some hotels and some other things. So pretty peaceful little spot. Let's see if we can grab another one right along the water here. Let's try this one right here, just because it did look really centralized. Hopefully we can grab that. My computer's still not doing what I needed to do, but grab that one there. Looks like they got some cool little areas to hang out right on the beach, and maybe even some vending areas. Looks like it'd be pretty fun. Probably around 90 degrees on a typical day, so this is maybe taken earlier in the morning, maybe 70 degrees. But anyway, so that gives you an idea, a little bit of an idea of what that beach is like. This looks interesting too. So it looks like they're going to try to build a beach or something along this whole. If you have some time, definitely take out this Eco City. That's all brand new development. So there's actually nothing really on there right now, but in the next. Oops, my internet box just fell to the ground. But let's just look here just to see what the difference is, and you can kind of see maybe what this pier looks like. So that looks like it goes out on the pier. Looks like someone took a drone footage. Looks like it's going to be a whole new rocky area, maybe even a park that you can run and jog. So they're really working hard. You can see they're building a couple new buildings. This is all going to be filled with skyscrapers pretty soon. So that's like one of Nigeria's biggest projects. But something to think about if you're studying Lagos. So I think it's going to be pretty safe in here for the most part, and it'll be pretty fun to be able to maybe one day try to visit Nigeria. So and if you are out along this beach, let's just grab one more beach point just to see what this one looks like here. Hopefully we'll load up pretty quickly. You can see some more scenes, what it might look like right on the beach. So this looks pretty cool actually, and you can walk all on the jetty. They got these in the United States as well. You can walk out on these rock areas, and the water's probably pretty warm here, so you can see a lot of people actually down here on the beach, and then dressing kind of differently, styles different, and some other things going on. So I'm glad I grabbed this other spot here, but let's go look at a couple more things that are popular to check out in Lagos. So Now this is another park called Freedom Park, and it looked like it was an old kind of prison area. But again, you can kind of see how this all works. This Lagos Island is kind of one of the more pretty and nice areas to check out, I would say, as well as the Eco City. But let's kind of zoom in here and take a look at what's going on in this park. The internet is kind of really loading a little bit weird today, but let's see if we can get right to the street view. Let's just grab right in here. See, this looks like someone walked the whole park. So it looks like you got a band area, kind of a little place to eat at, a bunch of cool things going on here. So definitely a cool spot to check out. So let's try to do one more street view here, maybe right here, right on Broad Street. See if we can get this, see what it looks like from the street. So it looks like it's actually kind of more of a it's still got some fences all around it, so the park is kind of an interesting area. You can see some people just basically walking across the street here and hanging out, but certainly one of the cooler spots to check out. I would definitely say interesting, so I didn't know about this place. So let's go one more place. Let's maybe go on the opposite side here, right over here, and try to see if we can get street view right in there. See what another spot of this park looks like. So it looks like they're still kind of under construction here a little bit. And interesting park to say, and they got really great vegetation. So this is almost jungle vegetation here that we could get in Nigeria. And so anyway, something pretty cool to check out. So let's look at a couple more here on the street view. I think we just checked this one out. This is that is where that Freedom Park is. And then the National Museum. Let's see the photos of it first to see if we can get some photos, so you can kind of see what this National Museum looks like. It looks like they got a lot of little African art and different things, even from the slave era, and some other cool pictures of what African art is looking like. So this looks like a pretty cool spot. Definitely need to check out. It's the museum. So let's see if we can zoom out, find out where that is. So that looks like it's right on the island, and it's actually pretty close to the waterfront here. So that's gonna be cool to see. Let's grab street view here. Looks like, is this it here? Yeah, so my computer's still having a lot of problems. I think I have so many tabs open that it's like basically dropping out on me. But looks like we kind of made it to the museum. Maybe somewhere area similar to that. But maybe not. So it says National Museum Lagos, and then there's like one little spot right there. So it looks like we got that. That was like the only spot. So you can see these road systems are pretty advanced here, and then you'd have to get off, and it looks like parking might be a problem. But they have a bus terminal and some other things, old government house, and some other things. So this Lagos Island is pretty important to the whole experience of Lagos. And let's just go to one other thing here. I want to kind of check out this one. So there's another park over here. Let's kind of I'm gonna leave this to you guys, so if you want to take a look at some of these, you can take a look at some of these. But there's another park out here kind of close to the beach. We already checked out the beachfront. And I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Let me know if you got any questions. We did go through quite a lot. One thing I'd recommend is taking a look at this Wikimapia and zooming in. So let's go into the island here. And this can tell you pretty quickly. You can see these blocks here, so you can see Lagos Motor Boat Club, and you can see Institute Nigeria, Federal Court Lagos. So this gives you kind of an idea for like what's going on in each of these kind of like districts and what it's called, so you can kind of get some ideas. And it really helps to do this. You can actually do this all around the world. These guys, there's only a team of like 5 guys that work on this map, but it's super awesome. It's been super helpful. Same with this one. I would definitely take a look at the population map a little bit more in detail if you're interested in taking a look at Lagos. And then the relief maps. And I'll post all these in the links if you want. And I'd be happy to talk with you in more detail about any kind of things going on, not only in West Africa, but around the world. So just let me know what you're interested in. And I'll post all these maps, hopefully, right away. Thanks so much. Hope you enjoyed this discussion. Hope to talk with you soon.